I'm Plami, and in this episode of In the Life of Plami, I'm gonna be talking about that I haven't talked in honestly, I think more than a year at this point, and that is my nasal issues. Yay! Yeah, for those of you who haven't watched the first video that I did on this topic in, I think it was like May or March of 2020, I had nasal spray addiction for I think maybe 6 to 8 years, um, but I kind of managed to defeat that addiction. So I've stopped using nasal spray, but things have gotten a little bit more complicated since then. So there's a lot to talk about. So before we get into my current situation, let's first go over my nasal issues throughout my life. So, ever since I was a kid, I've had issues with my nose, but for most of my childhood, it was mainly just nosebleed issues, which when I was a kid and went to the doctor, they told me that I had weak blood vessels or something along those lines, which was why they kept bursting, and I had pretty bad nosebleeds to the point where twice we had to call an ambulance during the night because the blood just won't freaking stop. And as some of you may know, if you get super emotional during that time, it ends up bleeding even more. So think what the reaction of like an 8-year-old be if their blood doesn't want to stop. And especially because the second time, which was a nosebleed on the following night, uh, I was told on after the first night that if this ended up happening again the second time, the ambulance would end up taking me to emergency uh, emergency rooms so they can do something about my nosebleeds and everything. And I was scared shitless about that. I don't necessarily know why, but it just scared me as a kid. So because of that, I ended up crying even louder and even stronger, and it ended up bleeding even more. And by the end of it, I had lost a lot of blood over the course of those 2 days. That's for freaking sure. Um, but honestly, after that, I went to the doctor, and I think I even stayed in a hospital for like a week. They did something to my nose, and I kind of stopped having these kind of big nosebleeds. I still used to get occasional nosebleeds, especially during the time where I used a nasal spray, like a nasal decongestant. Um, but it has never been anything as bad as that, honestly, and thankfully so. So after those things happened, for the most part, I was fine with my nose, but for some reason, in like when I was like 12 years old, so in like 2012, 2010, around those years, I had ended up using some nasal decongestion for one reason or another. Maybe it was because I was sick or something. I have no idea. Maybe it was the same issue that I actually am dealing with right now. I don't know. But I started using some nasal decongestions back then. Then I believe it was around 2014 or 2015. I had a really bad sinusitis infection, um, and I can safely say that at least since then I had been using nasal decongestion non-stop for, I guess it ends up being about 6 or so years, because I ended up stopping it in early 2020. So I had been using nasal decongestion during my teenage life for 6 years non-stop. I had tried a couple of times to give it up, but it was hell. So I kind of stopped trying to do that. But in 2020, I decided that I'm gonna go through with it and stop using it, because for those of you who don't know, with nasal decongestion, the reason why it's so hard to drop it, it's not really because it's like an addiction, like some other drugs like nicotine, like in cigarettes, or alcohol, or some other stuff like that. But the reason why it's so hard to drop is because after using the nasal decongestion, and that is important, not every nasal spray does that, just decongestions do that. after using it for more than a few days to more than a week, your body kind of gets used to it, and it ends up meaning that you have to use it more and more just to get it to work. And usually for me, it capped off at about 6 hours. So every 6 hours, I would have to spray my nose for it to stay open. Um, but after a while, if you try to stop using the nasal spray, and in my case, after I used it for like 6 years, almost non-stop, like it was pretty much non-stop because I never stopped using it for more than a few days, um, it was hell. Like, after you stop using it, after such a long time, you have to deal with rebound congestion, which is basically when your nose congests because it's so used to the nasal spray keeping it open. So, in a way, you can say that your nose forgets how to take care of itself because it's so used to the spray taking care of it, you know? So, usually it takes about 2 weeks to a month, maybe. It's different for everybody and depending on how long you've used it, but you're gonna have to suffer for a little bit with a very, very, very congested nose until you can actually breathe normally again. But luckily, after about a week to 2 weeks, it actually normalized quite a lot. I still had congestion in my right nostril, which is actually important. So remember that I have congestion in my right nostril. For a long time after that, but for the most part, I was living fine. Then during the summer, because I still live with my parents and my parents work on a farm during the summer, we have to move to a different farm because the animals are moved because of stuff you don't need to know about. I had to move with them, and at the don't have asthma as far as I know. But I was literally not able to even take a deep breath. Not even when like sitting or and definitely not when lying down. And even with like open windows and everything in fresh air, that was the only time where I was kind of able to. But for me to really be able to breathe deeply, I had to go outside completely. So at the time, I had no way to solve that issue. I had no means to go to a doctor to ask what my problem is right now because at the time I didn't know that there was anything wrong with my nose. I thought I just was dealing with rebound congestion still or something, and yeah, I didn't know what to do. So I had to continue using the nasal decongestion again because that's a surefire way to get your nose unclogged. No matter what it is, it's going to open your nose. So I had to use it throughout the summer, and I actually ended up using it for most of the year anyway because even at the end of the summer, I was going to start university in a different city, so I moved to that place. But I stopped the nasal spray there, but there my situation with my nose didn't really get better. And I think it's because of the issue that I'm suffering from in my right nostril that I'm going to talk about in a sec, but also because I had my cat live inside with me, which I might have an allergy towards cats because my dad is allergic to animals, or maybe he has similar issue to mine with my nose. I have no idea. So yeah, after I had to come back from the city I had moved to because of COVID, um, I had to use the nasal spray for about 2 weeks. Then we moved to the apartment in which I stay with my parents during the winter months and early spring and late fall. Like, you know, the other place with like the the sofa chair that you can see here, and like, you know, the other place. If you watch my videos, you know what I'm talking about. When we moved to that other place, I stopped using the nasal spray again, but my situation didn't really get back to being as good as it used to be before the summer. And I honestly don't know why, because before the summer, I was fine. Like, when I was standing, my nose was open. When I was sitting, it was a little congested, but it was nothing that just good nasal, saline nasal spray couldn't fix. Like, it was easily livable with. I could easily live with that kind of a little bit of an issue, you know? But it never really got better. It kept being congested so much that I struggled with sleeping for so much in the winter and in the early spring. And it wasn't until I went to the doctor in like, I don't know, I think it was like March, that I kind of got an idea of what my issue might be. The instant I asked the doctor what, the doctor looked at my nose, she said that my issue is most likely a deviated septum. I don't know, you guys can tell me, do I have a deviated septum? Because apparently it's very noticeable, because she asked me how the hell did I not notice it. So, do you see my nose being crooked? Do I need to get closer for you to see that? Because, I don't know, now that she had mentioned it, I actually do kind of see a little bit of a crooking in my nose right here. Although I think it's like this way. I think it's crooked this way, yeah. You can definitely feel a little bit of a croaking right here, but I don't necessarily think that's exactly what she's talking about. But apparently, yes, I have a deviated septum. Or at least she said that it's very possible that that's the thing causing my issues, because she asked me for my symptoms and everything, and she prescribed me certain things like an antihistamine pill and a corticosteroid nasal spray, which are things that get prescribed to you almost every freaking time you have a nasal issue. But those things didn't really help me. It wasn't until like the 20th day of taking those things that I kind of felt a little bit better. But even then, it wasn't anything like I was feeling like I was cured or anything like that. I just felt better, or about as good as I was feeling in the summer last year, before the summer last year, when I first gave up using the nasal decongestion. So in a way, I was back to relative normality, but then the pills ran out, and when I went back to the doctor, she said that I most likely had non-allergic rhinitis, which I don't think that's the case. I think she just didn't really want to deal with me because I don't have the insurance, or whatever you want to call it, that my country offers to everybody if you pay like certain amount of little amount of money. So maybe she didn't want to deal with me because she knew that they couldn't get money for this, or a lot of money. So she kind of didn't really do anything with me. But considering the things that I've read online about the symptoms of a deviated septum, which is pain on the side on which the nose is congested, a little bit like in the sinus cavities, which for me is on this side here. One of the nostrils being predominantly congested, which again for me is the right one, and having nosebleeds in the nostril on the opposite side, which would be this one. I frequently get nosebleeds on the left side. The nostril that gets congested almost all the freaking time is the right one, so I think I almost definitely have a deviated septum. But The problem comes with how do I deal with this? Because if you have a deviated septum, there's really realistically only one way to solve it. There's, I guess you can say, two, where you can treat any allergy or anything that can be causing an infection in your nose, which is the less likely way to work, but at least you spare yourself a surgery, or just getting a surgery, which I believe it's called septoplasty or something along those lines, in which they get inside your nose, I guess break it apart and fix it up properly so you can actually breathe. But not only does it cost a lot of money, which I don't have right now, there's a possibility I might have them, because I'm actually gonna be luckily getting a really cool job, hopefully tomorrow. Let's hope so. Or I'm gonna have to get them from my YouTube channel, which I don't really think that's gonna work out. But even if I had the money for that, I don't know whether I want to go through with that surgery because of two things. First, I don't necessarily trust doctors in my country to really do a good job with it. And two, there's a certain thing called empty nose syndrome. I'm not sure whether that happens whenever there's a surgery on your septum, or whether it's when they are doing a surgery on your turbinates, which is I think the inner linings of your nose, which be on the outer side, which is usually the thing that kind of causes your congestion. There's a possibility that if those things get surgery, your nose, or I mean, it's not even clear how that happens. You can just Google it and see what empty nose syndrome is. But the basic gist of it is that you will technically not have anything congesting your nose, but for some reason you still feel like your nose is congested, and there is no cure for it as far as I know. So I am a little worried about getting that happen to me, because if I think my life is hell right now with the way my nose is congested on one side all the freaking time, imagine how it would be if this happens to me and there's no way to solve it. It would genuinely be a thing to kill yourself over, and I'm not even joking there. If that happens to me, I don't know whether I would be actually willing to continue on living. So even though I think that I'll probably have to have the surgery, and I will probably still take the risk to have the surgery, I really don't want to even think about the possibility of getting that empty nose syndrome, because I mean, I don't know what I would do in that case, to be honest. It would be literally hell. And I'm almost certain, as I said, that I have deviated septum. It's just no way that it's anything else. One of my nostrils gets congested, the opposite one bleeds a lot. I'm aware of the nasal cycle, which, for those of you who don't know, your nose has a normal cycle where for a certain part of the day, one nostril is going to be a little bit more congested, or like it would work a little less, so more air would be going through the other one, and this one and the first one can take a rest, and they would switch throughout the day at certain intervals. So one of my nostrils being congested all the time because of my deviated septum means that whenever that one gets congested, I feel doubly congested, and when the opposite one gets congested, I either cannot breathe at all, or I feel better, or I don't really feel it that much, because when your septum is deviated, one nostril ends up being bigger than the other one in a sense, so the bigger one doesn't really feel the congestion as much. So in that sense, when my left nostril congests, I don't really care too much, while when my right one congests, it's living hell, essentially. Although it's not necessarily one-to-one like that, because there are times when my left nostril congests so bad while the right one is completely open. But the fact that most of the time the right one is congested pretty much confirms that this is a deviated septum. And before I even go to the surgery, I'll probably still talk to a doctor to confirm that it is the deviated septum that causes my issues. so as to be sure that it's that. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm honestly just at a breaking point at this point. I'm currently again using the nasal spray, nasal decongestant, because I just cannot bear to have my nose congested, and that is actually one of the reasons why I just haven't been doing videos for, I don't know, again 2 weeks again, because my nose just gets super congested and I just can't live normally. I can't focus, I can't be productive. Like, I can sit on my ass and watch TV, or in my case YouTube videos or TV shows or whatever, but I can't be productive, because for me to be productive I have to have solved all the issues around me and not have anything else to focus on. So when I have to think about my nose being congested all the time, I can't focus on doing a video or doing a review or playing a game, and it just doesn't work like that for me. So that's one of the reasons why I'm just not really consistent this year with doing videos. Not that I was too much last year, but honestly, from the beginning of the year, since I gave up the nasal spray, it's when my consistency issues with uploads kind of started. So yeah, I don't know. I really hope I have the money and I'm able to go through that surgery and everything goes according to plan, because if it doesn't, I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do, because I can't keep on living like this. I can't. And I'm probably still gonna try every other possibility of solving my nasal issues without a surgery, because I really don't want one. And I'm worried that it's not necessarily even gonna fix it, so I'm gonna go through all the trouble of getting a surgery, and then it's not even gonna fix my issues, or potentially make it even worse and unsolvable at that point. So yeah, I don't know. And again, as I said, certain things, like sometimes my left nostril getting heavily congested kinda makes me second guess whether I have a deviated septum or not. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it just almost definitely deviated septum. But in addition to that, I probably also have some kind of an allergy, because even if we ignore my right nostril getting congested, like even when I use nasal decongestant, for some reason whenever I eat bread or anything that has gluten, my nose, I mean, it's not even my nose, I just really react to it as if I'm kind of have mild sensitivity or allergy to it, because my nose start kind of I don't know what's the word for it. It starts to leak, for lack of a better term, and my eyes tear up. I sometimes start coughing or sneezing. And that actually wasn't an issue during the time when I was using nasal decongestant for like the 6 years. Or at least I hadn't noticed, because that's very much possible, because I actually hadn't noticed over the years that my left nostril, I actually breathe much more through it than through my right one. Even when I use nasal decongestant, like right now I'm using nasal decongestant, and even now I can feel how my left nostril is much more open than the right one. So I think that pretty much confirms that I almost definitely have a deviated septum that is problematic. But I think it's very likely that I also have some kind of allergies. So probably gonna have to deal with both of those things. But yeah, if you want to help with that and help me get a surgery, because the job that I'm gonna be getting interview for tomorrow is not necessarily gonna be a job that I'm going to get. Who knows? If that does not work out, I won't really have the money for this, so I would really appreciate it if you could donate through my Patreon, or get in touch with me to donate in some other way, like through PayPal or some other way. I would really appreciate that, because I want to fix this issue, but I don't really have the means to. So I would really appreciate any help that you can give me on that. But don't really feel bad if you can't or don't want to. It's like you don't know me. I'm just a stranger on the internet. But yeah, I don't want to guilt trip you into helping me out. So I would appreciate anything. And if you don't want to help me, that's completely fine. But yeah. So yeah, that's my situation right now. But yeah, before we end this video though, I'm going to be doing something new that I haven't done before, and I hope that I'm going to be continue to do going forward. That being thanking my first ever Patreon, Omari Bridgman. I don't know if you're watching this video or not, because it seems to me that you've subscribed to my Patreon because of my cartoon reactions. So if you're watching this video for this, that's great. But huge thanks to her being my first Patreon. If you want to join her, as I'm gonna repeat again in a sec, you can do that by going over to my Patreon and subscribing to any of the tiers. The lowest tier is just general support that doesn't really give you any benefits. At best, I'm probably going to be doing a thing where the people subscribed on that tier are gonna be included in the video as a picture, but I'm not necessarily gonna thank you by name, you know? At the second level, you get a thank you mention at the end of videos. At the third level, you get full-length reactions to my cartoon reactions, like to my episodes of the Nostalgia Trip. At the fourth level, you get to request K-pop reactions, which you can still do in the comments below, but in that case, it would be up to me whether I want to react to it or not, while in the Patreon, if you pay me at that level, I will 100% be doing that reaction as my next video in terms of K-pop reactions. And at level 5 is where you get a downloadable version of all my stories that I've written over on Wattpad, which, as I repeat in every video, you can get those stories, you can read all those stories on Wattpad. And right now there's not more than one story. There's only one story, but like 5 chapters or whatever you want to call them, because I just don't really have the time to write, because I'm more focused on growing my YouTube channel. But eventually there will be, so you can subscribe to that tier as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if I can even ask you whether you enjoyed this video, because it's not really a video to be enjoyed, but I still hope you found this video informative or interesting enough, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, check out the description to my Twitter if you want to follow me there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you don't enjoy my stories, or you simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to Patreon, where you can pledge your support and help get the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing the stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think that's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!